Welcome back to our fourth session on maximizing the benefits of partnership. This is where we begin to distill some of the lessons that we learned today and learn about how to deal with partnerships across major networks. Which research challenges can be most effectively tackled through African universities' engagement and leadership in international and global research projects. The session will be moderated by Martin Paul, who's the rector of Ruhr University in Bochum. Martin.
Thank you, Peter. And I was asked to cut down because we are running behind, so I'll skip 25 minutes of my 30 minutes introduction. I just want to say this is the topic of the session is called which research challenges can or will be most efficiently tackled through African universities' engagement and leadership in international and global partnership. And I think after we have discussed in the previous sessions many good examples, we have learned a lot about the fascinating activities that going here at the Ruhr and in the realm of the African universities. I think the next two sessions are going to be interesting because we want to focus what we can do together. And I think the establishment of the Africa Charter, all the different activities that we have seen today are really relevant because I believe we have to set a new stage for our collaboration. Equity has been a term, new business models, I think new models of thinking, how we can interact together, thought models are very important. Because, what's behind this, of course, is the dilemma of our past. There's no equal footing. There are the colonial traditions, the domination of Western thinking and huge inequality, not only in research funding, as we have heard by previous speakers, and this have inhibited our interactions. I think I was quite intrigued that Ruhr has had this European hub established, and that's good. We all know that colonialism is a European invention, but I think maybe it's interesting also to have a global hub for Ruhr. And I think since we have the wonderful opportunity of having a joint meeting between Ruhr and the WUN network, which is a global network, it could be quite interesting to discuss what could be opportunities for us to work together and to set the stage for this. We have now first a session where we have two speakers who are discussing this in more general terms, and then we'll have a panel discussion with some of leaders from our networks where we can look at some definite examples. And I hope at the end of the day, it's such a wonderful idea that we all come together in Pretoria for these few days, that at the end of this meeting we have some more concrete ideas what we could do together. I think there are many opportunities. And I would like now to introduce our two speakers. I think on the right-hand side from your perspective is, of course, Sandra Almeida, known to us very well because she is the chair of the WUN Partnership Board. She's currently the president of the Federal University of Minas Gerais in Belo Horizonte in Brazil. She has this post since 2018. And before that, she was there as vice president and as dean for international affairs. She's a professor of English and comparative literatures and holds a master's and PhD degree from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill and a postdoc from Columbia University. Next to her is Dorothy Ngila. She is the Director of Business Advancement of the National Research Foundation of South Africa. And she coordinates the contribution of NRF to the Science Granting Council's initiative in Sub-Saharan Africa and advances the engagement in regional and global knowledge networks. She has many roles in organizations and advisory and supervisory board. I was particularly intrigued that she's the past chair of the Organization for Women in Science for the Developing World. And so we start with Sandra, then we have Dorothy to address us, and then we have a discussion. So Sandra, you go ahead.
Thank you, Martin. It's a pleasure to be here. I have to say that as currently the chair of the Partnership Board of WUN, It's with exciting news that I got the information that we are going to have this session together with Arua. I think, as we have seen here today, there are many possibilities. So I'm going to start, first of all, talking about, giving an introduction about the fact that I speak from these two positions, as currently chair of the Partnership Board of WUN, but also as somebody from a university in the South. I think we talked a little bit about South and South cooperation, so I think we have to discuss it. Talking about the partnership between WUN and Arua, I think we start from a common ground, and I think this is very important, and we've heard a lot about it today. It's the focus on higher education as a public good and as a right, as it is established by UNESCO. Whenever we talk about higher education, we talk about it from the standpoint of a public good, not something that has to be dealt with as some goods. And a focus also on research, on science, education, and innovation. So this is a common ground that we share, and we should take a lot of from that perspective. And also the possibility of cooperation within the network, as Martin pointed out, is real. A lot of the things we saw here today, I think we can do together. From within the network, but also on a bilateral basis as well, because a lot of the cooperation might begin within the network and then develop into some kind of bilateral basis, always thinking about what we can take out of it. So we are talking about North and South cooperation, which is the more traditional one, as was pointed out here by the president, Themba Mosia, but also South-South, which is also a very important kind of cooperation that I'll be talking later on. We have a shared belief that there is no sustainable social, economic, and environmental development without the effective participation of our institutions, of our universities, which must necessarily direct their actions at the end of the day, we could say, especially nowadays, to the challenges and the demands of society, of our societies, with a commitment to regional and national development, socially and economically. So we are talking about excellence, quality of higher education of our university, but they also have to be relevant to our regions and to our countries. I think this more and more is demanded of us as universities. We also talk about that the aim is better achieved by collaboration, by collaboration with other national or international institutions. So we are here talking about those two things. How can we come from this common ground? How can we develop partnership among our institutions and within the network? But when you talk about partnership, what kind of partnership? I think we've talked a lot about it, how to build equitable partnerships. They are difficult to achieve, but very much necessary, because we come from very unequal contexts, and this is important to acknowledge. So it's important to identify the opportunities that we might have, the themes in common, whether they are complementary or not, the synergy among the partners. So this is very important so that we can achieve the kind of cooperation we think it is important. Based on principles of reciprocity, mutuality, multilateral cooperation, complementarity, and solidarity. This is also something that is very important. The kind of cooperation that highlights the strength and the collaboration that we can build according to what we can bring to the cooperation. That is, it has to be a win-win situation in this case. And it's the kind of cooperation that also should encourage diversity. I come from comparative literature, so whenever I think about comparing something, you compare what is equal, but you also compare what is different. So this encouraging diversity of peoples involved, of areas of knowledge, of perspectives upon a specific subject is also very important when we think about this kind of cooperation. And we have to think also about the strategies to overcome the challenge that we often have, to promote this effective collaboration. Of course, we have languages barrier, there is the problem of the distance between the countries, the lack of knowledge concerning about each other. So there are a lot of challenges, but we have to find ways to overcome those challenges so that we can have, in fact, the kind of cooperation that we would like to achieve. And one of the most important things is trying to understand difference. I think this was mentioned here several times. Learn more about the partners, getting rid of stereotypes, because we all bring stereotypes when we come in contact with the other. Learning about other peoples, other cultures, other languages, and also, and mainly, encourage active participation as actors, not as mere object of research, as Suze pointed out very well regarding what she termed helicopter research. So we also talked about, from the South perspective, that we would like to be co-production of knowledge, to work with us, not for us. I think this would be the basis of the kind of cooperation that we would like to aim at. And from this context, speaking from a president from a Brazilian public university from the South, it is important to say that South and South cooperation has been a priority for us over the past years as well. Not only because of the historical and contemporary connections between Brazil and Latin America as well, in Africa, because of our history of a colonial past, and the present need to cooperate in terms of decolonial terms, something that has been mentioned here. Cooperation with the Global South, with South cooperation, involving also North cooperation, and for political reason as well, the cooperation with the BRICS network, which has been very much emphasized lately. We share a lot of strength that point to our relevance to research in some specific areas, and that's what I would like to address, and I think this is the major topic of this session. We have high biodiversity, cultural diversity, strong local and indigenous knowledge, emerging research hubs, as we saw here today, several areas that are being really developed in terms of research, still young and growing population, Brazil less so than Africa, a potential for transformative research from our perspective, and also enormous challenges to be faced, and academic cooperation can help minimize the challenge that we face as countries from the South. So then I address the specific point of this topic, which is which research challenge can or will be most effectively tackled through the perspective of African universities, and also to the perspective of the South, I would put it that way. One of them that has been mentioned here, and I think we have to put that a central focus for our cooperation in the future, thinking in terms of the possibility of cooperation between WUN and ARUA, is talking about climate change and sustainable development. There is no way we can talk about that without knowing what has been done here in Africa and even in the South, in Latin America, for example. So we have to address environmental impacts and promoting sustainability, and also talk about environmental disasters that we've suffered from. And when we talk about environmental disaster, they are more damaging when they occur in areas such as in our countries. Probably everybody has heard of what's happening in the south of Brazil with the floods, and many people died and thousands being homeless at this point because of the conditions, the inherent conditions of these countries. Sustainable development as well in terms of trying to balance economic growth. We are both, economies, they are growing very fast, and environmental and social sustainability. So a lot of the production of knowledge along that areas comes from African country and comes from countries in the South as well. The issue of public security is also something that has been a focus, and I think we have to learn a lot from the experience from our African institutions, ensuring safety and security for all citizens in fast-growing urban environments. This is important to mention. Another important topic that has been addressed as well, technological advancement, promoting local innovation and technology development. As producers, there is no way you can just keep on buying technology. We have to try to produce our own technology, we in African countries, so that we can, not because we want to compete, but because it's something that we need to do to preserve the production of knowledge in the country. Protecting democracy is also another area in which research is important to be conducted. Safeguarding democratic institution and process, regarding specifically political stability, fostering stable governance and preventing conflicts, inequality and inclusion that was mentioned here today as well, the importance of talking about inequality. This is some kind of production of knowledge that is very important in the Africa continent, and it is also in Latin America, addressing economic and social disparities from our perspective. So a lot of the production of knowledge in that area is being produced in these countries, and we could take a lot from what is being done here. The infrastructure that was also mentioned here, developing transport, energy, communication networks that are suitable for the needs of these countries in Africa. A major issue that was also mentioned is the concern regarding public health, fighting or combating infectious disease and tropical disease, especially. If you're talking about malaria, yellow fever, dengue, so the major researchers are in those countries. So it's important, and this is a cause of serious concern regarding public health. Improving healthcare infrastructure and addressing the concept that is being debated all over the world now, that is One Health or global health. But we cannot do that without learning from what is being done here in Africa. Telemedicine, which is also a very important topic because we have expanse of areas that need to be reached, especially rural areas. Access to education, ensuring universal access to quality education, particularly, as I mentioned, in rural areas, concerning always inclusion and permanence of those who are able to get to the university. Food security is also a major topic, especially concerning agroecology and what we learned recently, 2 days ago, in the University of Cape Town about smart agriculture. That's a wonderful project that's being developed in this country and also with some countries in Latin America. Genomics is also a major topic that we need to address. Research and protection of our resources, our genetic heritage. So this is something that some countries have already talked about, the importance of preserving what we know is being part of this genetic heritage. And last but not least, human resources, that has been mentioned a lot here, building capacity and developing skilled professionals and researchers, and finding the means to deal with academic and scientific diaspora. I think this is a reality of this country and also of our country as well. And there is the need, as we saw in the previous presentation, really of capacity building. You know, I am, for example, the same thing happened in Brazil in the 90s. You know, there was the need for capacity building. So I am a result of that, as you saw from my CV. I was sent abroad to do my master's in PhD so that I could come back and help build the programs in my country. So I am the result of a public policy that really faced this major problem that a lot of countries still have. So how can we, as WUN, can help in that challenge? I just want to give a couple of examples. In the area of public health, telemedicine and vaccines, you know, we have expanding access to healthcare through telemedicine initiatives, developing vaccine, improving public health and outcomes. There is a group, and we have a research together with the University of Southampton, University of Ghana, in the scope of WUN, and artificial intelligence regarding health. We also have research on public health safety. We have a Center for the Studies of Safety and Criminality. Democracy, we also have a program regarding democracy, fighting hate speech, disinformation, and fake news. So this is being implemented by WUN together with Mahidol, Maastricht, UFMG, and the University of Pretoria. Another area that was mentioned here, and I think it's very important for us to listen to what our colleagues in Africa are doing, is nanotechnology and material science, sources of important, our countries are sources of important minerals used in nanotechnology, but creating innovation from this material is a matter of relevance to our countries. And also access to education. We have a program in Brazil that forms educators for rural areas and also for indigenous population in times of shared timings. They stay at one period at our university, then they go to their to their regional region. And I would like also to give another example of a successful collaboration within WN, which could easily be expanded to cooperation with ARUA, is the project on gender, climate change, and activism against natural resources extraction in the Global South, with the University of York, Ghana, Makerere, and UFMG. So this would be a good example of one project that talks about South and South cooperation within our network that would be of interest to other networks as well. These are just examples. I can think of 1,000 other examples as we look through the projects that we have been developing and the ones that I've listed here today. And I would like to conclude by commenting on the transformative mode of research. A lot has been said about transformative mode of research. And I would like to cite a Brazilian educator, some of you might know, Paulo Freire, who said something that I like. He talks about the concept of critical pedagogy that led to a radical change in the educational system in Brazil. And I quote from what he says: "Education has to transform the world. Education changes people. People change the world." So if you want to create transformative mode of research, we have to start with people. We have to start change the way people look at research, the way that it is done. And I think what we are doing here today is the beginning of that possibility to be amplified. I think WN has been doing it, but a possible cooperation between ARUA and WN would be essential for us to promote this transformative mode of research that can only happen if we change also the way that people think in terms of research. And a lot of what has been said today leads in that direction. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, good evening. It's a really great pleasure for me to be here with you today. There are very few broader STI convenings where the perpetual lack of statements are not utilized to characterize the African R&I system, especially when it comes to funding. What I want to share with you today is a story of how we have been utilizing an abundance-focused approach to partner, network, and support research on the continent. I will discuss this from the perspective of public funders of research on the continent. And my intention is to showcase how a capacity strengthening initiative has led to a maximizing of benefits through the incubation of several multilateral research programs. This is the outline of my presentation, and I would like to start with a brief introduction of my organization, the National Research Foundation, and our embeddedness on the continent to provide context for the S2CI and the OR Tambo Africa Research Chairs initiative. So the NRF is the largest public funder of research on the continent. Our mandate is embedded in 4 key areas around advancing of knowledge, and there we support research as well as provide research infrastructure, transforming lives, which is around support for postgraduates and emerging researchers, inspiring a nation. We are responsible for coordinating the science engagement framework for the government, and lastly, building partnerships and providing business intelligence for our system in South Africa. What I want to highlight around that is a very intentional, holistic approach towards human capital development that sees the NRF embedded in global knowledge and institutional networks, and sees us investing strategically in areas that advance knowledge for relevance, but also for societal benefit. This is a snapshot of some of the continental partnerships of the NRF. The first one is what I'm going to talk about a little bit more. But what I want to highlight by this slide is to show you that whether you're talking about infrastructure, you're talking about human capital development, you're talking about being embedded in knowledge networks, you are talking about supporting and being part of large consortia of multilateral research programs, the NRF is interested and contributes to that on the continent. In 2015, a number of us got together with the NRF and sister agencies now in 18 countries on the continent, to start what has been called the Science Granting Council's Initiative in Sub-Saharan Africa. It's a capacity strengthening initiative that focused on supporting the strengthening of public funders, such as the NRF, in these countries in a number of areas: research management, how we partner together with industry, how we use priorities as a way of setting our agendas, and how we partner better together. We also have been really deeply interested and engaged in conversation around how we integrate gender and inclusivity as part of our research and grants management processes. That initiative has given birth to a number of benefits. Those benefits include the global visibility of public funders on the continent, an increased engagement in terms of scholarship that understands the value, the contribution, and the visibility of these public funders. It also includes really bringing together some of the top think tanks on the continent to support this capacity strengthening work. What I want to highlight is a really significant benefit that is connected to universities and researchers on the continent, which has been an incubation of a number of multilateral research programs under the SGCI that allow us working together as sister agencies to support our systems and to support research. They have included the COVID-19 Africa Rapid Grant Fund, which supported over 80 projects that looked at research, science communication, and science advice. AJ Core, together with our brothers and sisters from Japan, that is supporting several projects over a number of years that are rooted in the work around environmental sciences. Very recently incubating a program together with the Dutch Research Council and the German Research Council to really focus on areas around the food-water nexus. The one that I want to talk about now is the OR Tambo Africa Research Chairs Initiative, which many of the colleagues that are in the room from the rest of the continent and the RUA universities will be quite aware of. The OR Tambo Africa Research Chairs Initiative, established in 2018, funds 10 research chairs that are supported in the rest of the continent across 7 countries, 10 universities who are hosting them. They seek to contribute to expanded research and innovation capabilities in and for the continent, to contribute to Africa's global research competitiveness, contribute to the career pathways of young and mid-career researchers, and most importantly, and we're really delighted to be lent this name, to honor and promote the legacy of O.R. Tambo, who was an ardent freedom fighter and believer of Africa's unity. These are the partners. It's a complex program that has meant that we needed to partner in an overarching way across the funders, but also with our Science Granting Council colleagues, as well as these universities across different levels, and having conversations that are linked to how do we ensure that these chairs are going to be sustainable for a longer period of time. I want to talk a little bit about an innovative funding model that we have. So when we were talking about how to fund the OR Tambo Africa Research Chairs Initiative, we always, at the back of our minds at the NRF and working together with all our partners, the DSI, IDRC, and the Tambo Foundation, always knew that the NRF will always be on the continent and that we needed to partner in a way with the rest of the continent that was dealing with some of these issues that we have been discussing today around equity and equitable partnerships and how one develops that and how those are sustained. And so at the bottom of what we wanted to create were an inclusive partnership model we wanted to use the power of leveraging, especially on that initiative that I spoke about, leveraging resources, but also the learnings that we had gathered together. And we wanted to focus on sustainability from the very onset, sustainability planning, how this ownership model for Ortachi was going to look like, and of course, shared learning. On the left-hand side, you will see the power of leveraging on the SGCI, and this is what the direct funding for the first 5 years looks like. The NRF and the DSI fund, but the IDRC also does, the host institutions do, and the SGCs do. And here I want to pause and talk about how do we innovate. We talk about the lack of funding on the continent. The thinking here needs to change. So what we did very practically with the OR Tambo chairs is we approached the host institutions and we asked, would you be able to guarantee that this professor would be paid for the duration of this research initiative? Yes. How much is that going to cost? That's going to be your contribution. We approached the host institutions and said we needed space, we needed equipment, we needed space, we needed you to be able to ensure that when this research chair is looking at 30 students, that they have the possibility to have space on campus. How much is that going to cost? Can that be your contribution? And they did. The Science Granting Councils, our partner agencies, also came in, not just financial support, but also the power of leveraging on the policy conversation, because they are engaged in the policy nexus conversation. And lastly, our long-term partner IDRC and the NRF then also contributed to this initiative. And this is one way of thinking about abundance instead of lack of. These are the research focus areas, the broad discipline areas. They are all embedded within the research development plans of these universities, are aligned to the African Union. So I don't have a list of research areas that the WUN focuses on. My advocacy and my encouragement is to really embed in what is the research development plan of the university and how is that aligned to the African Union plans and priorities. So the initiative took us 5 years to incept, and I'll talk about that as a very intentional model of building trust, allowing time, just now. And just in 1.5 years, this is what we were able to see from these chairs. These are the collaborations that are taking place in these 2021-2022 year. These are the publication outputs, 1.5 years, 30 scholarly articles. These are the human capital development outputs. And here I want to talk about the power of leveraging, not as the funding partners, but as the shareholders themselves. You can see the value of having the OR Tambo funded research chair students, both at master's, doctoral, and postdoctoral levels, as well as how they've leveraged that from the other initiatives that they do have. These are per study levels, the HCD outputs, and here I want to talk about the ways in which they've been able to attract females specifically, as well as thinking about the core team who supports the research chair. This, for us, was an absolute mind-blowing find in the data analysis. Within a year of putting in the amount of money that I shared with you, the research chairs and the universities were able to leverage nearly the amount of money that we were going to put into the initiative to support from other sources. The NRF had only disbursed 30 million, but these chairs as a collective were leveraging 100 million rand in just that 1 year. I want to talk about the learnings that we've had from this initiative. The first has been about how to partner. The second one has been about how, as a funding agency, the NRF needed to shift our processes and systems. time and trust. Took us 5 years intentionally to focus on how did we want these chairs to be embedded within the institutions and within the countries where they were going to be supported. 5 years of money, 5 years of travel, 5 years of lots of conversations. And I believe that we were able to start building trust in our ability to partner together during that inception period. We have always thought about these chairs and all of the programs that are incubated by the S2CI as an experiment and a way of learning about how do we fund research better, how do we think even innovatively about how we fund on the continent, and especially as public funders. And really most importantly, that we were able to advocate for and support the research focus areas as identified by the host institutions and in alignment with the AU agenda, rather than a preset set of these are the research focus areas that we would support. From the NRF side, it's been about flexibility in our processes and agility of our systems to be able to really support these chairs outside of the South African system. And also thinking about a long-term investment trajectory. It doesn't help that we put money for 3 years or for 5 years. We're not going to be able to really look at what the economies of scale these chairs are going to give us. It was important for us to profile and make visible the research and researcher excellence that was existing, and also to really think about relational ways of working together in all of the different partners. The NRF has a dual role to play in this time. It's a funder, but also a supporter for implementation, which is very linked to then being able to work in a relational way. And my last slide is about the opportunities for WUN from what we have learned from the OR Tambo chairs. It's important to align research focus areas with the university research development plans and the AU so that you can get maximum benefits. I still believe that we wouldn't have been able to get the quality of proposals that we received if they were not aligned to the research development plans of the universities. Co-design and implementation, we have discussed that a lot, but I want to highlight the fact that we are now supporting and retaining really excellent researchers and a set of committed postgraduates here on the continent that are contributing to intra-Africa collaboration and engagement in a different way. These universities, these research chairs are embedded within the local context, they're connected regionally, and they're collaborating globally. So critical for the long-term trajectory. And I do want to highlight on a very significant opportunity for when you partner this way is that you're able to encourage innovative methods of teaching, supervising, as well as unearth all the different models of conducting transdisciplinary research that is there on our continent. An ecosystem approach to partnerships, don't just think about the research, but also human capital development, research infrastructure, societal and economic impacts of research. And then the last two are the opportunities where we think that there are some gaps for strengthening. And this is in the research and grants management capacities at the research performing institutions on the continent, as well as platforms and partnerships for sharing research equipment and research infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. I think there's a pretty good overlap between the research areas that you fund and what we have in WUN. So that's a good start if you have the content that is really quite good connected. So I think we can certainly start from there. So we have time for a few questions. Any questions or comments? Maybe I'll start, Sandra. When you it was mentioned this morning, of course, we are all very interested in SDGs. But it's also mentioned maybe also some areas outside SDGs where we shouldn't have a blind spot. Do you have any ideas, particularly from our WUN portfolio, what could be interesting in this context that we've heard today?
Well, I agree with what was said today. I think SDGs are important, is to set up an aim for research, future research, but I think we should definitely go beyond. I think what's happening in the world nowadays, there are other possibilities for us to understand. I think when you talk about sustainable development, a lot of things come from the idea of sustainable development. I think in my talk, I tried to mention a couple of them, but this is a major topic that we have in the research regarding WN. But over the years, we have had several projects. We have projects after COVID-19 and what could be done regarding it. And this is a matter of just like talking about sustainability as well. We also have projects regarding global health and One Health, artificial intelligence as well, which is something that is very important for all of us. So I agree. I think we have to move beyond the SDG. They are very important, but what we need to do regarding our research in our universities and the way that they are related to the needs of our countries, I think we can go beyond that. And I think we've had several of those possibilities. If you look at the portfolio that we have in WN, and also from what we saw here today, I think there are a lot of possibilities of going beyond just what is being established there.
Thank you. Looking around. Well, no?
think people
Then
are tired.
Dorothy, I was very intrigued by how you have these bilateral arrangements with research associations, such as the DFG, such as the NWO. Is an idea, because we are a global network, to also get some of these organizations together to see how we can have a multilateral effort? Because it's always bidirectional in my experience. Do you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think we are very open. There are bilateral, trilateral partnerships that are already existing. There are multilateral partnerships that are existing. We are consistently looking at how we can engage our universities even better so that across all of the funding agencies, we can be able to support the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I have a question for
Yes.
Dorothy. Yeah. My question I was very much interested in what you talked about. And I noticed what you talk in terms of cooperation. What kind of cooperation? Do you have cooperation with institutions that are like your institution in other countries? Do you have any examples? Because we have, for example, in Brazil, we do have a national research foundation as well. So I wonder how that could be, how a collaboration could be set, an agreement of collaboration could be set with your institution, on what basis?
So we have a really alive bilateral with both CNPq as
you
well
do?
as FAPES.
Oh, nice. So good to know.
And we've been working together in the area of human and social sciences in the transatlantic platform. And we've had quite a number of bilateral projects. We do this across 43 countries in the continent and across the globe, actually. And we are an ardent and very active supporter of the Global Research Council, which brings together all the public funders across the world, 65 of us at the very least.
Excellent. Yeah. Great potential.
Okay, one more question here. The gentleman from Morocco. I just wanted to point out one thing. We talked a lot about north, 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 south, south, south. I just noticed these logos of our organizations. They're really networks, and
They are,
you don't
that's
see
true.
these directions anymore. It's maybe another argument for closer collaboration. Please.
Well, just another couple questions to our colleague from NRF. Very, very enlightening, I would say, the future of the continent. So my first question is, what's the vision of success on sustainability? Because I've heard that NRF right now, as we speak, is holding an important event in Durban around all those things. So what the future looks like in terms of networking to tackle sustainability in particular? That's my first question. And the second, when you look at the map of Africa, it seems to me that there is a part of Africa that gets often missed or forgotten, which is the north. What do you make out of that?
So, great question. Who wants to start? Maybe on the second one?
For Deborah.
On the second one, absolutely. So we are right now in the process of reviving what used to be an active bilateral engagement with Tunisia and Egypt, as well as Morocco, actually, with our sister agencies in those countries. And We are really interested, especially to explore the areas of AI, to explore the areas of emerging technologies, and to also start thinking together around this research infrastructure and equipment question in the context of the AU agenda. Thank you.
SDGs?
Yes, I think when you talk about sustainability, we talk about a lot of things. When we're talking about climate change, we talk about One Health. We see what happened with the pandemic. We talk about the condition of water in several countries, which is a major topic for everybody. We talk about exploitation, mineral exploitations in several countries. So I think this can be developed into several other topics. But there's no doubt that this is a major concern in not only for the governments, but also for our institutions. It's something that we definitely have to move around, not only regarding SDG, covers parts of it, but I think there is a lot more that we can bring to the discussion, and I do think that African countries have a lot more to contribute, as I mentioned.
Thank you. Well, this closes this session. Let's give a good hand to Dorothy and
you.
Sandra.
We come to the fifth and final session of today's meeting, which is the distillation of what's been learned during the day, opportunities for WUN and ARUA. We have a panel of 4 presidents, vice-chancellors from the 2 networks in a session moderated by Professor Koen Lamberts from the University of Sheffield. Koen.
Thank you very much. And so as Peter said, the purpose of this session is to reflect on what we've heard today and to try to do some thinking with you about what that could mean for the future direction of the networks. And so I have 4 superb panel members with me, and I'll briefly introduce all 4 of you, and then I'll open up. So our first panel member is Nana Aba Apia Amfo. Nana is the first female vice-chancellor at the University of Ghana. And prior to her appointment as Vice-Chancellor in October 21, she was the Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs. She was the founding Dean also of the School of Languages and previously served as the head of the Department of Linguistics. Her MPhil in 2001 and PhD in 2007 were in linguistics from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology in Trondheim in Norway. She holds a bachelor's degree in French and linguistics from the University of Ghana. Our next panel member is Frédéric Herman. Frédéric. He became director of the University of Lausanne in 2021 after first joining the university to set up a research group at the Institute of Earth Surface Dynamics. First as a Fonds National de la Recherche Scientifique Grant Professor, and then as an Associate Professor. He completed his PhD at the Australian National University in Canberra, researching the interactions between climate, erosion, and tectonics, and completed a postdoctorate on tectonic and erosion processes in central Nepal at the California Institute of Technology. And in 2018, he was elected Dean of the Faculty of Geosciences and Environment at the University of Lausanne, and that was a role he held for 3 years. Frédéric. Our next panel member is Sizwe Mabizela, who has been the Vice-Chancellor of Rhodes University since 2014. Previously, he was their Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Academic and Student Affairs. He earned his doctorate in mathematics at Pennsylvania State University in 1991. Between 1992 and 2003, he was an academic in the Department of Pure and Applied Mathematics at the University of Cape Town, and he became a professor in the Department of Mathematics, Pure and Applied at Rhodes University in 2004. For some years, he was also a member of the South African Mathematics Olympiad Committee, and in July 2014, he chaired the 55th International Mathematics Olympiad, which was held at the University of Cape Town. Welcome. And our final panel member is Andrew Parfitt, who is the Vice-Chancellor and President of the University of Technology, Sydney. He joined UTS in February 2017 as the university's Provost and Senior Vice President, before being appointed Vice-Chancellor in November 2021. Previously, Andrew was Deputy Vice-Chancellor Academic at the University of Newcastle. He has also held senior leadership roles at the University of South Australia and the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, which is an Australian government agency responsible for scientific research. Andrew's had a very distinguished career as an educator and researcher in telecommunications engineering, specializing in antennas and radio systems, and he's made contributions to satellite communications, radio astronomy technologies, and space engineering. Andrew, welcome. So I will now ask all the panel members to make a brief initial statement before we then open up to a discussion with you, the audience. And can I first invite Nana to open the discussion? Nana.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Presidents, Vice Chancellors, ladies and gentlemen. It feels like an arduous task coming at the end of a long day, and to keep up the interest of everyone here till the end of the session. And it even feels harder when you not only feel, but you know that all that you plan to say has already been said, and you still have to speak. Right. So anyway, we're here, together with my co-panel members to assess the major opportunities for the networks and consider where we'd like to see us headed. I think to help us do that, we need to go back and to sort of remind ourselves why these networks were set up and the aims of these networks. I'll start with the WUN, which brings together 23 leading comprehensive research universities in a collaborative partnership to advance research and education on major global challenges, capitalizing on the geographical and cultural diversity of members across 6 continents. WUN enriches its shared experience and brings together distinctive constellations of talent to address problems of real significance. Well, I see some key phrases here. One of it is collaborative partnership, a lot of which we've talked about today, and I'll return a bit later to this. Another key phrase that I find here is a major global challenges. I think that everyone in this room is well aware that the challenges that confront humanity today is largely global. The responses, though, often require context specificities. And I believe that over the past few years or even decade, we've experienced this around the world. When you think about the recent global health pandemic, issues relating to public health, climate change, climate adaptation issues. In the part where I come from, we've seen seashores getting eroded. We've had rains when we don't expect rains, drought when we don't expect drought, and we've seen the effect on food security. In other parts of the world, sometimes there's been just 2 hot summers and even 2 warm winters, if we can put it that way. Issues of migrations affecting us in different ways. Some of us feeling that we are losing our talents, while in some other places they feel that they are getting too many people. We can talk about issues of artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. All of these are global challenges, and one of the key things too that this network seeks to do is to address problems of real significance. Now let's get to Arua. We've had a brilliant, exposition on what Arua has done and is doing by Professor Aite, and I can in no way match it. But just to have a bit of a recap, Arua aims to enhance research and graduate training in member universities. It seeks to improve the quality and quantum of research done in Africa by African researchers. of course, this is against the background that Africa contributes 18% of the world's population. You want to be very specific, 17.89% of the population of the world, 25% of the burden of disease, and 38.3% of the world's undernourished people. Yet, you're all aware about the research, the percentage of research output. 1% growing, but we are certainly not growing as fast as we can. And clearly, partnerships and networks are the way to go. They are critical for leveraging resources. We cannot and actually shouldn't be duplicating high-cost research facilities. I mean, if there's a good marine lab at the University of Ghana, there's no need to have another one at the University of Cape Coast, or even another one like that at the University of Lome. There has to be something else there, and then we can comfortably and confidently share these resources, especially these high-cost research facilities. And also, there is a need for us to maximize our academic human resource. When I take my context, our context again, I mean, for the past 3 years, we haven't been able to actively recruit as public universities because we need financial clearance from the government. It's only recently that they've given us some clearance, and that's just about, maybe 30% or less of the human capital that we have lost over this past 3 years. And so, but we need to keep the universities running. We need to keep doing the research. We need to keep doing the training of graduate students, PhDs, and so on. And there's a lot that we can benefit from these networks when we share the human resource that we have. We actually do maximize the expertise that we have. Now, Arua listed 4 areas, which I'll just go through as we think through the opportunities for partnerships. The first one is collaborative research. And indeed, a lot of the discussion earlier this morning focused on that, co-creating and co-executing research partnerships. We had the brilliant example of the clusters of research excellence with Arua, and Prosaite gave us the numbers of the research partnerships or collaborations with the clusters of research excellence that have been led or initiated by the African partners, and the ones that have been initiated or led by the Guild partners. But what he didn't mention was that not only have these been led by the various sides, but they have actually been co-created. So it's not the case that one side decided that this is what we want to do and then presented to the other side. These have actually been co-created, and we are looking forward to these being co-executed. Equitable collaboration, indeed, a lot was said, and I mean, I do align with all the things that Isabella and her team and partners are leading. But I just wanted to emphasize again one thing, which is the issue of data governance and ownership as we go about these partnerships. I was quite disheartening to hear yesterday from my Pro-Vice Chancellor that the National Institutes of Health, they have now added a clause to their agreements which required that we send even clinical notes over to them. And I thought that is not, it's taking us back to the issue of really helicopter science that we heard you talk about this morning. We need to ensure that African alternatives are considered as viable alternative, our indigenous knowledge systems, and the idea that theories can also originate from the continent. These are things that we need to be thinking about again and again in these collaborations. Now, the second thing that Arua did mention was the training and support of PhDs. Yes, now we're talking about 100,000. Barnabas says no, it's 1 million. You know, whatever the number is, there's clearly the impetus for us to upscale PhD training on the continent. And the thing is that when we train PhDs on the continent, there's a high retention rate on the continent. I can give the example of the University of Ghana, where we have the West Africa Center for Crop Improvement, as well as the West Africa Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens. The first one, for instance, WACI at the last count, I trained maybe like 109 PhDs coming from 19 countries in Africa. And more than 90% of these PhDs are still working right on the continent. And you can say the same, you know, for WACI. So it is, it's really a project that we all need to buy into to really ensure that the talents that we have get retained on the continent. The third point from Arua is the capacity building for research management. We need more of the big bucks right here on the continent. 3.8% of global research funding in climate change is what comes to the continent. Even when we are in these partnerships, we still find that quite a huge chunk of the monies for research on the continent doesn't actually sit on the continent. We have built capacity over the years. There are robust systems in place. Of course, these can be improved, but we do have robust systems in place. I mean, to give an example from the University of Ghana, in 2010, 2011, we established our Office for Research, Innovation, and Development, and that has grown and worked well over the years. And we currently have approval, and from August, we're upgrading that to a directorate. So we'll still have our Pro-Vice Chancellor for Research, Innovation, and Development. We'll have a Director for Research and Innovation. We'll have Deputy Directors for Research and Innovation. And we continue to build capacity in this regard. So let's have the confidence and bring the big bats onto the continent. The fourth thing that Arua did mention was research advocacy, and that's clearly an area of opportunity which we certainly need to do more. Research advocacy around research uptake on the continent, research advocacy to get our governments to fund research. It's a big part of the conversations when we're talking about equitable partnerships. We need to get our governments to fund research. And earlier this morning, too, there was a point about mobility, issues of visas. And we've experienced that right here on the continent. I know that Arua had issues like that in the past. I hope that it has been resolved. So we need to engage our governments on these points, and also to get more businesses to support research in Africa. We saw the data earlier this afternoon. Now, what do we want to see more of? Clearly equitable collaborations. We want to see more African institutions leading and participating in these collaborations. We've seen that it works. We've seen the examples of the clusters of research excellence. We saw the example that Mano gave earlier this morning. And I also like to mention that there's the multiplier effect. And so in the clusters of research excellence, and in the same way as it is for the centers of excellence, it is not just the Arua universities that are participating. We actually pull along and bring along other universities on the continent, because we recognize that we have to build this critical mass of researchers all over the continent. Yes, we want to see more PhDs and more postdocs being produced here on the continent, and we also want to see sharing of high-cost research facilities and human resources on the continent. And then we want to see the building of human capital. Of course, we cannot not highlight the issue of gender and having more women at the table at every level. So largely, working through, on the part of Arua, working through the centers of excellence, the clusters of research excellence, the PhD training that you're about to roll out, I see many opportunities for working together through the WUN themes of sustainability, climate change, health, notions of identities, food security, AI, and others that Sandra listed in the previous session. So ultimately, these partnerships should address the global asymmetries in knowledge production. We need to increase the quality and quantity of research done equitably on the continent. And I cannot end by saying again that we need to see more women leading research teams and more women trained in our PhDs and postdoc programs. We need to be deliberate about these processes, get champions to push for these on the ground. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for staying. First, I'd like to thank the organizers of the meeting and at the University of Pretoria as well for hosting us in this magnificent room. I'm actually quite impressed. Obviously, you have the same issues at the end of the day. I don't want to repeat everything that was said before. I want to thank Sandra for her very comprehensive summary of what was said today. So I will not go back into the details. I just want to make 3 points and stay at a fairly high level. The first one is that I noticed today that we all have common objectives, and I think it's essential. And that touches on so many topics regarding open science, sustainability, health, inclusion, career of young scientists, innovation, digitalization, AI, SDG, retention of talents, which you mentioned. But we're all aware that the contexts are different, and we are facing different challenges. And you mentioned the asymmetry in funding, but the asymmetry in challenges that we're all facing. But I think the fact that we all have common objectives is a good sign. I mean, that means we're all looking in the right direction. And I really liked what Martin pointed, is that we have logos that are very similar. And then network, I'm talking about directions, but the idea is that we're working in networks. And that brings me to the second point, because the core topic of the day was on the collaboration and the transformative research collaboration and the equal partnership. I think that's essential, and that's one of the key take-home messages for today. And we've got information, at least me as rector, I can go home, I have a homework, I can take the information. I really like the charter on transformative research collaboration. And in fact, I realized that it's quite similar to things we have in Switzerland, where the Swiss Science Academy produced recently a guide for transboundary collaboration, which has many things in common with the charter we heard about this morning. And the key now is how to take that and make it real into an institution funding programs. and we realized that there is a lot of work to do. There's one little information that I wanted to mention is that as a European university, we are involved into European university alliances, which involve African universities. And what I'd like to do now is to take what I've learned today and bring it into this other network that is very active and has a partnership that is ongoing. And then finally, and I would like to finish on research, since the goal of a network is about research collaborations. I was obviously very happy to hear that what I call traditional research is in the center, and I was very impressed by the NRF. I was really impressed also by the Center of Excellence that were mentioned. But there's one thing that I haven't really heard today, maybe it was a little bit in things that Sandra mentioned, is how we deal with what we call inclusive research, and I mean participative research, practice-based research, or action research. And there are sources of inspiration. And very recently at the University of Lausanne, we had the chance to host Esther Duflo, who got the Nobel Prize in Economics. And it's a great, great source of inspiration. I mean, she does development economics. She's one of the very few who got the Nobel Prize for doing action research. She's also the youngest Nobel Prize in economy, and she's the second woman who got the Nobel Prize in economy. And I think I would like to mention her. I have a book here with me. I'm proud because she signed it. And I would like to end on that because it's an open question, and I think that could bring something into the collaborations of the two networks. So thank you for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Program Director, colleagues. Just about everything has been said. So I will try to be brief. There are just a few points I want to make. Firstly, challenges that face humanity transcend geographic borders and disciplinary boundaries. As such, no single continent, no single country, no single university can solve these entirely on their own. Secondly, linked to the first point, true collaboration, productive partnership, equitable and transformative collaboration is the key to solving the world's most complex problems. And much has been said about the importance of equitable partnerships. The partnerships, cooperation, and collaborations should be about knowledge exchange for common good and the leveraging of research and education for a just and sustainable future for all. In this highly networked and interdependent world, we must either collaborate for the common good or perish as fools. Thirdly, Africa and its institutions have much to offer the world. There is no shortage of talent, but opportunity is the major limiting factor. Africa has an abundance of untapped opportunity and human potential that can benefit humanity. As you heard, upward of 60% of people in Africa are under the age of 25. Fourthly, we need to recalibrate, rebalance, and redefine the relationship between Africa and the rest of the world. Such recalibration, rebalancing, and redefinition requires of all of us to unlearn and let go of some of the preconceptions about Africa and African institutions rooted in the colonial paradigm. Africa is not hopeless. It is not a hopeless continent in search of charity. Fifthly, we look for equitable partnerships and inclusive collaboration predicated on mutual trust, respect, fairness, reciprocity, and in which contribution of each partner is valued. Much has been said about this. The Africa Charter for Transformative Research Collaboration creates a useful framework to facilitate and regulate equitable and transformative collaboration. What I'm saying here is that we really need to go back and relearn and unlearn some of the preconceptions about this continent, some of which is presented as a basket case. So we look for partnerships predicated on the recognition of our common humanity and our shared destiny. I will not repeat much of what my sister has already mentioned, but as the SG indicated, we have a MasterCard Foundation challenge to produce 1,000 doctoral graduates per year for the next 10 years. This is where you could help us advance this objective. There are issues pertaining to human capacity development. As I've indicated, we have a youthful continent in need of support in terms of funding, research infrastructure, and equipment. We are thinking in terms of the doctoral program to have split-site doctoral programs, and you can play an important role in that regard. We need support for early career researchers to establish themselves in the research and innovation enterprise. I was very delighted when mention was made of teaching and the need for the holistic development of these young academics, not only in terms of research, but also in their ability regarding teaching and developing appropriate curricula. We will need assistance with course supervision and mentoring of masters and doctoral students. Issues of mobility have already been mentioned. We need to create opportunities for masters and doctoral students to spend a few months learning in your universities and equipping them with skills and competencies that may be lacking in their home institution. And there's a need to strengthen African research capacity to address particularly the SDG challenges. There are issues of isolation and lack of access to research databases, which impact negatively on research and innovation. Mention has been made of the Arua Guild clusters of research excellence. We have 20 of these, and we look to you for your contribution as we advance knowledge, research, and education for the common good. Thank you.
You're hopping around. So what a great day. Are we excited yet? Yes. Look, I think there's been such an honest and open discussion around the issues we face, and let's be honest, there are issues with collaboration, that we can actually move forward with some ways of thinking about how we can improve collaboration, how we can bring things together. So thank you to everyone for sharing those insights today. Early on, somebody made a comment, and I'm sorry I forget who, that local challenges have the potential to become global challenges. I actually think we need to think about it the other way around as well. Global challenges need local solutions. And in order to find the local solutions, what we have to do is understand local context. And I think that's what we've been doing across the course of the day. Local context is important, not just from capability and policy and from funding structures and all of those things which are essential ingredients to research collaboration, but the research culture and the expectations and the trajectory we've been on, and a sense that we can only address those and have a respectful and meaningful collaboration if we're open and honest around how we're going to collaborate. The equality of collaboration is important to the solutions we're looking for. And to that end, we've started, I think, today a good conversation. For WUN, we come from very different local contexts ourselves. As Vice-Chancellor of an Australian university, We certainly have challenges in our community that's associated with disadvantage, with lack of access to education, with lack of access to research. We suffer from an industry structure that is antiquated. We suffer from a geopolitical position that is conflicted in relation to strategy and economics. And in all of that, universities have a role and are torn in different ways. And there are both similarities and differences to what we've heard today. So I think we need to continue the journey of understanding one another and where our needs are to find those local areas. So we've heard today a lot about the African context, and we're very grateful for people sharing that. The Sustainable Development Goals, I do think, bind us together. They're a meaningful way in which we can assess progress, and I think that if there is an area for us to pursue, it's how we combine our resources around the ones that we feel are the most important for the capacity and capability we have within the two networks. I won't keep repeating comments. I have 6 minutes and 32 seconds left, which I won't use all of. I'm just going to make 2 points. The first one, and I don't think it's been mentioned as much today as perhaps we should have done, is that university vice-chancellors can talk about collaborations as much as we like, but we have to remember that we're communities of scholars, and the appetite for collaboration and the willingness for collaboration comes from our academic staff. And they're eager to do that, but we need to be able to facilitate how that happens and demonstrate to them the mutual benefit for it happening. It was interesting, I was with Frederick earlier in the week, and we were talking about a collaboration where two of our, one of Frederick's and one of my senior professors spoke to us about what they would like to do together, and our response was, go and do it. Right? That's what we need, is the way of facilitating and providing that context for academic staff to see the value in solving the solutions, and they're very, very significant, solving the problems, very significant problems we have to solve. And to that end, I do agree that early career research is probably the place to look for at least some of the starting projects and areas that we might consider. I mean, our researchers at that stage of their career, they are looking for what builds them out for the next thing, whether it's international impact, whether it's the opportunity to work in transdisciplinary teams. This very centre that we're in is the epitome of transdisciplinary research and education. It's a shame we haven't been able to hear more about it, but such wonderful things happening here at this centre. Whether they're looking to really get their hands on a real world problem with local community impact. Early career researchers, I think, is where we should look, and WUN in particular has programs around that, whether we can share areas. So a great start, a fantastic start to a conversation between two very significant networks. There are areas that we have complementarity, there are areas where we have differences. Let's continue the conversation.
Great.
Thank you very much. So, over to the audience. We have probably about 10 to 15 minutes at most. So, who would like to open the questioning for the panel? And you can either direct your questions directly to a panel member or to the panel itself, and then I'll try to pick someone. Nick.
Thank you, and thank you for a great day so far. I really liked Andrew's comment around local solutions to global challenges, and I think, so as I speak today in this glorious sunshine here, we have flooding and extreme weather in Yorkshire, and we all have extreme weather problems. We all have local solutions. Leeds is well renowned for its natural land management work. How do we surface that so we can genuinely see the connectedness? We do sand pits, we do meet and greets, we do barbecues, we get people together. But how do we genuinely take it to the next level? Because I still don't think those are quite effective enough of getting the people who will collaborate in the room together.
That's a great question. And Andrew, because the issue originated with you, I'm going to hand over to you first.
Where do you start? the grand challenges are just sometimes too grand to get people around. So that's why I like the local context, because you can actually frame the problem that gives you a reasonable chance of harnessing the resources that can make progress towards it. And we heard today many examples, I think, of areas that you could gravitate around. The bit about that it's certainly true that you know, there are differences, but there are also similarities. In Australia, we're having issues with flooding at the moment. Right? Climate change isn't all about melting. It's around, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. So that takes us to a conversation. Should we be talking about things like emergency management and water resource management? That sort of then starts to make it a bit more granular. And people can take the similar challenges that we're looking there into those local areas for solution. But the conversation has to start somewhere, and that's where the networks, I think, have value. And some of the projects that WUN runs in particular are often the start of those conversations. They might tackle a particular challenge, but it's what they lead to that's more important perhaps than the individual project itself.
Yeah. Thank you. Do any other panel members want to contribute to that? Friedrich?
You want to go ahead? Yeah.
Yes, I think the point has been made, and it really is important that the challenges we face are simultaneously local and global. And therefore, as Vice-Chancellors and Presidents, and then I think, again, the point is that it's researchers who have to collaborate. We need to create an enabling environment which facilitates that, that collaboration, and we need to support that.
Thank you. Other contributions? Nana?
No, that's fine.
Friedrich?
Yeah, I can go back to what you were saying. So, I mean, it's this field, people talk about global. First when I saw it, I thought it was a typo. I'm not sure if it was local or global and its use. But I think as this institution, we do produce science to offer solutions to, for a better world. So, I mean, actively we do it. But then before I was just mentioning Esther Duflo, and somebody asked her a similar question in the audience, and then she answered with this very French answer, is that you have to cultivate your garden, just do what you can where you are. And it's already a good start. And what we've been thinking as an institution in Lausanne, it could apply absolutely everywhere, is that we manage, it's like little cities. I mean, we have the problems of crimes and difficulties and everything, but we can also reduce our impact, and we can show it's possible, and then we can export and collaborate and expand and invite others to do it as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Question here at the front.
Yes, thank you very much. I just am admiring these transformers. You are the vice chancellors. You are the. You have the vision. You have to give the visionary leadership to your community of scholars. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity. But again, coming from where I am, and you gave that example, the link. How do we, capitalize on academies? I mean, in terms of how can academies part of this equation to be able, to be able to assist with those public policies? How can we do that? I know in centuries back, academies work very closely with universities. How are we doing it this time? Because we talked about so many things, and I think that's a potential, resource or whatever we have, which we are not using. So how can from this gathering, and how can you lead, your community of scholars to be part of this, and become like a think tank, a small group in your universities to drive it? Because you're talking about the African Union. I mean, each university cannot make that. But if you come with your scholars, to make that into public policy, to the common goods and all that, how do we do it? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll go. All right.
Nana?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that you coming here to give a keynote is a good step in the right direction. I mean, you have reminded us since the morning that academies are also possible avenues which we can collaborate with and work together towards, you know, a common goal. And you are right. I mean, for some of the things that we are talking about, individual vice chancellors don't have to move up to governments. We go as a collective. And there are also certain things that even in our positions as vice chancellors, it becomes too political for us. And we need avenues such as the academies, the country-based academies, the continental-based academies. So I think your presence here is a reminder to all of us that there is another option that we are underutilizing, and we need to utilize it to the more. So I'm sure you'll be hearing from us, from the networks, from Arua, from WUN, and even from individual vice chancellors.
Look, I think it's a really good question. And it comes back to, as vice chancellors, us not only sending the right signals, but backing it up with the right institutional settings so that people respond. Somebody mentioned knowledge exchange. If the only thing academic staff value because the institution says it's because if you get a grant, a research grant and funding, then people will go after the research grant and funding. If the institution values and will promote on things like knowledge exchange, then people will come to forums like this to be able to exchange ideas and understand where we're at. If an institution promotes based on the H index of its academic, and that's the sole indicator, people will go and publish till that's where they'll spend their time. So I think, you know, if we're genuinely committed as institutions to making social change and social impact, we have to make sure that we set up an environment for academic staff to respond to things that may be a little less traditional than what we thought they were, even maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Thank you. Frederick.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. I think it's essential our role as leaders of institutions to remind students and academics and the entire staff what's the purpose of the university. And we do it at a time where knowledge in general and science is being questioned, you know, and we have to do it, and we have to do it together and just put it back and show that we are there to provide solutions for the big societal challenges.
Thank you. Excuse me?
I would say it really varies from country to country and how these academies position themselves. I would like to think that they comprise of the eminent scholars, leading thought leaders in the country, and therefore should become an important resource for the nation, particularly when you talk about science, policy, and society interface. That's where the ideas should really emanate, working together with the universities so that there's mutual reinforcement between what happens in universities and the advocacy role played by these academies for the greater good of the society.
Thank you. Other questions?
My name is Mark Thomas. I'm from the University of Technology, Sydney. I have a question in the interest of knowledge exchange and sharing of best practices. There's been a lot of talk about the value of the network and a lot of high-level work in terms of establishing it and making sure that it has the resources to succeed. I'm wondering if the panel members might reflect a little bit about their specific strategies for engaging the researchers, especially early career researchers, to make sure that they're actually getting involved and activated within that network. So, yeah, what are the communication strategies? What are the activation strategies at your individual universities that you're using to make sure that researchers are aware of the network and that they have the opportunities to become part of it and benefit from it?
Thank you. So it's really a practice-focused follow-up on the previous question. But how do you translate that principle that you talked about? Who wants to have a go at this one? Excuse me?
Well, the first thing is communication. making information available to these young scholars. I think the point of mentoring has been made repeatedly here. It can never be overemphasized. And the idea of those who are mentors creating links and networks for them outside of the university and outside of their country, that is something that is important, drawing their attention to the opportunities that are available for them to develop and grow. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so certainly communication, as Sizwe has mentioned, for the WUN, for instance, they require that we have coordinators. So you have a coordinator in your university, and that person is the focal person who gets information from the network and disseminates the information. In my university, for example, we have research development officers attached to the various colleges and schools. And so these also have the responsibility for looking out for relevant information to match them on to specific researchers. So it helps when we have a focal person for these networks who would ensure that the communication gets to the people to whom they are needed, and as you have mentioned, the early career researchers. So yeah, you would have to have a communication strategy.
You do. Thank you. Are there any other questions? I think we have time for just one. I don't quite see. Oh yeah, over there.
Hi, my name's Paul Revel. I'm from the University of York, and there were a number of us here who met yesterday who are actively involved in partnerships across Europe, Australia and Africa. So we had researchers from York, from Bergen in Norway, from University of Technology in Sydney, from University of Ghana, Makerere, from Malawi, a number of places. And we're really the doers of partnerships so I was taken by the comment of the VC from University of Technology in Sydney about it's easy enough for VCs to sing the praises of partnerships, but actually university communities of scholars, and maybe there's need for VCs to listen to scholars a little bit more. We had one session yesterday which was really highlighting the virtues, the benefits of partnerships, but also the challenges encountered. There's been some discussion of the academic promotion criteria not necessarily aligned to what's required for effective partnerships. But there was one thing which was raised particularly, which I'd encourage you to think about. It's the need for longevity of partnerships. So partnerships are often supported through research grants, which come to an end. But to have effective partnerships, researchers themselves need to put their own stake, their own personal capital into it. It can be very challenging when you see the end of a research grant coming, and there's so much capital which has been built up. So a question for the panel would be, are there ways that you could support longevity of partnerships beyond the horizons of individual grants?
Thank you.
I think you only know you've got longevity when you've hit old age. I said, I think you only know you've got longevity when you hit old age. I don't think you go into every partnership expecting it to endure forever. If you did that, you would limit yourself to a whole lot of things that perhaps aren't the ideal things to do. So I think we have to accept that longevity is not the only measure of a good partnership. A good partnership could be coming together around a particular challenge and issue, dealing with it, delivering a solution, a public policy position, a platform for something else, and that's it. I wouldn't be obsessing too much around that. You can't, relationships endure, if you like to put it that way, and you can then they can reform in different ways. So I just don't think it's an a priori consideration. And it's nice if they do endure, but that's not necessarily anything.
Great, thank you. I think we're going to close the session here. So I'm starkly aware that we haven't really answered the exam question, but I don't think that was expected from us. But what we've certainly been able to do is raise a host of potential avenues for future work for the partnerships, and that's been invaluable, I think. So please join me in thanking our panel for their excellent contributions. Thank you. We have 6 seconds left, and I'm going to hand to Peter.
I just like to thank all our speakers and panelists and moderators and all of you for joining us in what I think we can agree has been a very productive day, which will give rise to substantial continuing discussions about what the two networks can do together and how they can actually work in ways that directly address the problems that have been surfaced so eloquently today. So thank you all for joining us.